What's up everyone, Ju Fufu has just hit the game and she is an absolute powerhouse of an agent. She combines all the great strengths of off-field stunning with a whole host of absurdly strong buffs. She is completely broken, so stick around as I break down how to get the most out of her buffs and best build her. First up, we've got to talk about her basic attacks, and there's actually multiple versions of it. After she lands 2 basic hits, Fufu will back away from the enemy almost in a pounce state. This sets up her string of 2 moves. You can either continue pressing her basic attack to continuously scratch enemies and deal physical damage, or alternatively, if you hold the basic attack or press the basic attack button after waiting, she'll unleash another set of slashes that, although can't be spammed, deals good fire damage. However, the most important variation of her basic attacks aren't these 2 types, but another called Hue. Hue is the little contraption she deploys that constantly deals passive damage to enemies even when Ju Fufu is on or off field. This passive damage not only chips away at enemies' health, but also plays into an essential mechanic for her playstyle. As Hue attacks enemies, Fufu will gain a resource called Might. Fufu similarly gains Might through her EX special attack or ultimate. Upon reaching 100 Might, which you can tell when her special bar lights up, Ju Fufu will perform Chain Attack, suppressing Tiger Cauldron. Unlike her normal Chain Attack, Cauldron Collapse, which only triggers when stunning enemies, suppressing Tiger Cauldron can be activated multiple times, and you actually want to do this, as this unlocks Ju Fufu's stupidly strong buffs. With the Chain Attack performed, the Tiger's Roar effect will be triggered, boosting her team's crit damage by 20%, increasing Chain Attack damage by another 20%, and most notably, raising ultimate damage by a huge 40%. Speaking of ultimates, her additional ability improves them even further. If Fufu is paired alongside an attack or rupture agent, the limit for decibels will be increased by an extra 1000, meaning that the max decibel points you can now hold is now 4000 points. Plus, attack and rupture agents restore 300 decibels upon using their ultimate. These buffs are insane and will absolutely raise your DPS significantly, but unbelievably so, Ju Fufu can buff your team even further. Tying in with their passive, the crit damage buff from the Tiger's Roar effect is increased based on her attack stat. To make a long story short, aim to have 3400 attack to max out her crit damage and give your team an extra 30% crit damage for a total of 50%. Now, don't stress out if you can't hit 3400 exactly. If say you're hitting maybe 3200 or 300, legitimately you're only missing out on about a 5 to 10% crit damage increase, which is not at all significant. So really, with this, your main goal should be to hit close to 3400 and not go any above it. Moving on, as a cherry on the top, the passive of Ju Fufu has the added bonus of increasing her impact by 50. Thus, Fufu can stun enemies faster and give your team the bonus damage that comes from stun, in addition to all the aforementioned buffs she gives. As such, as you play Ju Fufu, aim to build as much might on her as possible. You'll gain the most might by using her EX special attack, which gives 80, as well as her ultimate, which gives you 100. So prioritize using these abilities if you're low on might, and then simply let Fufu use her chain attack on her own. Oppositely, you actually can trigger the chain attack manually, and this is done so by holding basic attack after dodging. She will basically turn into a Beyblade, yet with enough momentum, which is another resource of hers which she gets by performing assist follow-ups, special attacks, and ultimates. Her Beyblade attack will deal fire damage instead of physical. With enough might, Fufu will trigger her chain attack in this attack mode, but ideally you want to make her do it off-field on her own. With her kit covered, when upgrading her abilities, start with her core passive to boost her impact and buffs, and then level her special attack and chain attacks. Do the same for her quick assist and basic attacks, and if you'd like, though not completely necessary, you can also upgrade her dodge attacks. Now that you understand how to play Fufu, let's talk about the best engines to complement her kit. Naturally, we'll start with her signature engine, and surprisingly, it's not exactly the strongest of her engines. Here's why. Her signature Roaring Furnace, which, great name by the way, has a high basic attack with additional attack percentage on top of this. It also boosts her daze by 28% and when maxed out, provides stacks of 20% extra damage. On paper, this sounds incredible. You've got massive attack, improved daze, and a big damage boost to both herself and her team. But here's the catch, it doesn't boost her stunning capabilities as much as other engines. This engine trades impact for loads of attack percentage, resulting in high personal damage and crit damage from her core passive. And this is the main appeal of this engine, ease of building Fufu and high damage. And if you want to prioritize these things with your Fufu, this is an amazing engine. But if you want her to stun faster and more consistently, impact based engines are better. A prime choice is the Blazing Laurel. It grants the highest stat of impact through its passive and substat, while also boosting attack and amplifying ice and fire damage, perfect if you want a balanced approach of personal damage and stun potential. Another solid option you cannot go wrong with is with the Hellfire gears. It synergizes with Fufu's off-field playstyle by increasing her regeneration rate when she's off-field, meaning that she can perform more EX special attacks. Plus it grants more impact, making her stuns more effective. You could also consider the Unrestrained or Ice J Teapot. The Teapot is the better of these two due to its team-wide buff and greater attack, but these two engines have an impact substat while also emphasizing the impact of their basic attacks. These buffs will apply to Huei's off-field attacks, thus they certainly are usable, albeit not the most effective since basic attacks aren't a massive part of Fufu's kit. Really, these engines are more so used for their higher basic attack and impact stat. As for the best A rank engines, as usual, the 6-shooter is usable but not great, so I don't recommend it, and you've got the likes of the Steam Oven with the fossilized core. The Steam Oven will rank better in most content, as not only with all this energy will Fufu get high impact through the passive, all the energy will make Fufu smoother and easier to play, as she'll have better generation of might and momentum thanks to all the extra EX special attacks she'll be able to dish out. Nevertheless, the fossilized core is usable, though it relies on the HPs of the enemies you're fighting, which traditionally does cause it to be weak. In Deadly Assault, it is the best engine for stunner, so in this regard it is very good. But beyond these two, a third option exists, that being a Pulcher Signature. It has a great basic attack for an A rank engine and buffs the user's impact. With high attack plus both a daze and impact, it's a very strong A rank option. Before I cover Ju Fufu's drive discs, I'd appreciate it if you could take a quick second to like the video and possibly subscribe. This helps me out immensely and means a lot. Anyhow, let's finally get into what are the best drive discs to equip on Fufu, and this is another aspect of her build that makes her very broken, even more broken than she is already. But I must admit, things do get a little complicated with her drive discs, but what's not complicated is the 4-piece that you want to equip on her. 4-piece King of the Summit. This set has been a game changer for stun agents, and Ju Fufu is no exception. With this set equipped, when you cast your EX special or chain attack, both things you'll do multiple times, your team gets a 15% crit damage boost, and if your crit rate is at least 50%, that boost jumps to 30%. This set is absolutely perfect for Ju Fufu, as through her kit already, she gives crit damage, and now she'll be even more broken, and instead of giving just a 50% crit damage bonus, which is already a ton, now she'll give an absurd 80% crit damage. If you ask me, this is power creep at its finest. Is not only will Ju Fufu be a stunner and of course stun units and give you that stun damage bonus, on top of all this, in addition to all the other buffs she's going to give you 80% crit damage. This is going to be an insane damage boost to any DPS, especially those that use ultimates and chain attacks. Now the caveat with Force Summon is Fufu also needs very high attack, thus balancing these two stats can be tricky. To ease your burden, you can mix Force Summon with 2 Woodpecker Electro for extra crit rate. This should help you reach the 50% threshold, but if say you already have enough crit rate, it'd then be best to equip any 2-piece that furthers attack to get more crit damage from her passive. However, the strongest 2-piece in terms of damage would be 2 Shockstar Disco. Like for most stun agents, this is the best setup, as currently with it, you get more impact, thus more stunning, with the added bonus of Summit's crit damage increase. Here you get the best of both worlds, leading to the highest damage output for your team. Lastly, there's Swing Jazz for extra energy, as well as Inferno Metal for Ju Fufu's personal damage. For those of you that have yet to get a good King of the Summit set, you can fall back on 4 Shockstar Disco in the meantime, in addition to 4 Hormone Punk or Swing Jazz. You can pair these sets with any of the 2 pieces I just mentioned, alongside 2 King of the Summit. Now let's talk about our main sets, and this is also fairly complicated, as there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Really, it depends on what you want to get out of your Ju Fufu. If you want to get the maximum crit damage possible from her passive, run attack percentage on all 3 discs. This will help you reach close to that 3400 attack limit. However, this does come at the cost of relying on substats in order to reach Summit's 50% crit rate requirement. You also do miss out on impact, so your stunning will be weaker with this. A more balanced and flexible combination is crit rate, attack, and impact. Here you have good crit rate and you get good attack percentage and impact for better crit damage and more stuns. You can also switch out impact for attack percentage if you want more crit damage at the cost of weaker stuns. Regarding substats, aim to get attack percentage and flat attack until you reach 3400 attack. Then stop aiming for attack entirely and instead focus on crit rate, crit damage, and pen. Next up, let's cover Ju Fufu's Mindscapes. Whether you get them accidentally or you get them on purpose, they are quite strong and definitely nice to have, but thankfully not completely necessary. Take for instance her M1. Fufu gains a permanent 12% crit rate, making her damage better and less reliant on crit rate in order to trigger King of the Summits buff. She also gains 100 might so you can right away make use of her buffs, but the real kicker comes from when Ju Fufu's chain attack damages enemies. When this happens, the enemy will gain 35% extra stun damage, similar to Lycon's stun. This one Mindscape does a lot and makes her even more of a broken stunner, so it is really good. M2 does things similar to this, but improves on her existing abilities, rather than giving her new ones. It gives your team even more crit damage. 80% crit damage is somehow not enough. With M2 you'll now get 22% more, so 102 in total. Plus with ultimates, Ju Fufu gains 3 points of momentum. On to M4. Unlike other M4s that give quality of life upgrades, this one is a simple damage increase. This gives 35% crit damage just to Ju Fufu. Though she'll already have tons of crit damage already, this will still help out her damage and make her somewhat of a sub DPS or passive damage dealer rather than just a passive stunner. And actually her M6 basically does this very thing. On top of a big increase to chain attacks, when Ju Fufu is in her Beyblade mode, it deals much higher damage as hitting enemies will fire off popcorn, dealing 160% of her attack, and this will naturally deal tons of damage as Ju Fufu already wants huge amounts of attack built into her kit. Now that you know all there is to Ju Fufu, let's go over some amazing teams to play her in. Before I get into her number 1 team, I want to go over a team in which Ju Fufu's impact will be most felt and maybe even more than her number 1 team. This team is alongside Astra and Evelyn. Evelyn has always been an incredibly strong DPS, yet even with her strength, she's lacked a stunner that perfectly synergizes with her and caters to her needs, similar to how Astra does. But now with Fufu, this is no longer the case. It's clear that with Fufu alongside the team I'll mention, she's definitely meant for Evelyn. Aside from the ridiculously high crit damage buff Fufu will give to Evelyn, which is a big improvement in of itself, Fufu is perfect for Evelyn as being an off-field stunner, Evelyn no longer needs to be switched out for the enemy to be stunned. Now she can remain on field, dish out her high damage consistently, and build up stacks to either repeatedly deal her chain attacks or save them for the stun window. And regardless of whichever route you go with, considering that Ju Fufu significantly improves chain attacks, this will result in a very nice damage increase for Evelyn. Let's move on to the next team, and you'll probably know where I'm going with this. It is with Yixuan. Yixuan is currently incredibly strong. She's easily a top 2 DPS in the game, and now with Fufu she may even be the number 1 DPS. All of the weakness and limitations Yixuan had with other stunners are now solved with Ju Fufu, and this is very apparent. Once more, Ju Fufu being off field, Yixuan has the freedom to remain on field, trigger her incredibly strong attacks, so your overall DPS will remain very high throughout a battle. But more importantly, Yixuan can continuously build and consume adrenaline, making it easier for Yixuan to build up towards her second ultimate, and this very thing even happens with Yixuan's first ultimate. This will make her rotations much stronger and a good bit easier to perform, as within the stun window you want to use Yixuan's 2 ultimates. And best of all, both of these ults will make use of the 40% damage increase Fufu gives to ultimates, absolutely making Yixuan even more broken than before. Well everyone, this is the guide. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me in the comments, and thanks for watching.